Good morning, everybody. I think we can start now. I extend a very warm welcome to all of you to this hopefully very exciting session on how AI-powered solutions are available for sustainable agriculture in rural development and climate resilience. I'm Saad Paracha. I'm working with IT department currently. And supporting partnerships and some new projects focusing on AI. We are delighted to have you all with us. We are also delighted to have our partners with us. For those of you wondering what M4D stands for, so this is the Moonshots for Development, which is a coalition that was started in 2020 and consists of many multilateral development banks and IFIs and their innovation arms working together to focus on the moonshots and how they apply to development. Last year, Moonshots for Development launched its first challenge, which was to explore opportunities and solutions available in the AI dimension and how they can support rural area development. We are very glad to partner with IFAD, which is represented here. Just briefly, the session will flow as follows. We'll start with opening remarks from the Associate Vice President Strategy from IFAD, after which we'll have the winners of the Moonshots for Development Challenge presenting their solutions for climate resilience, and then we will move on to the panel discussion and end with Q&A from the audience. We also would like to thank Emerging Area Practice Team of Asian Development Bank, which has put together a very exciting program today with various deep dive sessions that you will be attending, including this one. Without further ado, let us extend our gratitude and welcome Jo Puri, Associate Vice President Strategy and Knowledge Department, IFAD, for her remarks. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Lovely to see you here. And thank you very much, everyone, for the organizers, Gladys, the team here, for having me as well to open this very exciting session on AI and moonshots for development. So one of the key things that really stands out for me is recognizing both the possibilities as well as the challenges that we have with respect to food systems and particularly smallholder farmers. So smallholder farmers are possibly also the solution, but currently a challenge for us. A challenge because we know that they are the most vulnerable subpopulations that we can be looking at within food systems. They also represent an opportunity because they contribute 1/3 of the overall food that we consume. But the challenge is that because they are vulnerable and because they don't have access to financing, they don't have access to technology, and they are, along with many others in food systems overall, are contributing 1/3 to the overall emissions. The challenge is to try and see as to how we can make them far more sustainable and far less vulnerable. They get currently less than 1% of the overall new and additional climate finance that we know is coming in, and so that's indefensible as well. Smallholder farmers represent an opportunity, but the challenge is that they also face informational asymmetries. And what that means is that we know that there are markets out there, we know that there are providers and consumers in smallholder farmers, but we need to be able to make that connection. And what technology can help us do is to be able to essentially bridge that gap. But we also know that the opportunity is that that smallholder farmers are representing the possibility of providing us with food, but a lot of big agencies like IFAD, like the ADB, like many of the multilateral development banks, don't go in because there is no possibility, or they don't see a possibility of really seeing the economies of scale that is aggregating them to a large extent and to be able to create these large deal sizes that we're all interested in while having very low transaction costs, which is essentially the information that you need on the due diligence with respect to smallholder farmers. So that's essentially the challenge that we are seeing as development banks, as UN agencies, as IFIs. The reason that this session is particularly very exciting for me is because it provides us with a huge range of possibilities that we can start to both adopt and address with respect to smallholder farmers. So one other statistic that I want to share with you is that traditionally we've also seen smallholder farmers as being very impervious to adoption of new technologies, right? In my earlier life, when I've looked at some of the evidence that is coming on in terms of adoption of, say, agricultural insurance, we know that agricultural insurance, less than 20% of the targeted populations, when we are working in developing countries, 20% of target populations, which are smallholder farmers, are likely to pick up agricultural insurance in the first year. And this is, again, because of the perception of what is called basis risk, right? The difference between what your actual loss is and what the loss is that is picked up by insurance agencies, and therefore the payout. And so that becomes just another attribute of some of the challenges that we face when we are looking at adoption of new technologies, new methodologies that also serve to then take forward our overall perception that smallholder farmers do not adopt technologies in a ready way. Moonshots for Development and AI present us with that possibility. I got numbers from the team that are extremely helpful for me to sort of see. With artificial intelligence, apparently the overall possibility in raising incomes across the world, or resources, leveraging additional income and growth, is approximately $15.7 trillion. Artificial intelligence gives us a huge opportunity in giving us the tools to use image recognition, to process data extremely quickly, and to essentially create these algorithms that can help us understand not only the extent to which smallholder farmers in very, very quick turnaround times can understand the threats of pests and pestilence, as well as disease, as well as weather events that are occurring, but can also help us to understand as to, for example, what is the soil carbon that exists, right? And be able to even take us into new markets like carbon markets, and be able to share the benefits with smallholder farmers that may come from generating incomes from there. IFAD has been working very closely with the Asian Development Bank and many others, such as, and I don't want to leave anyone behind, so I'm going to look at my notes, the World Bank, IADB, sg-afnr, as well as the World Food Program, on Moonshots for Development, and is really also proud to take forward the Innovation Challenge along with our other partners. As part of this overall initiative, we've also been supporting initiatives from Grow Asia as well as Helvetas to really look at technologies that we can support that go on to support smallholder farmers, but also people living otherwise in developing countries. Some of the key things that we are learning just from our initial work with artificial intelligence as well as other digital technologies is recognizing that, yes, technology is important. But as with all technology and as with all innovation, what we need to be aware of is what are the challenges and what are we learning in terms of being able to reduce those challenges with respect to technology adoption. I also come from a space of behavioral science and setting up choice architectures so that makes it very easy for people to do the things that they really want to do. And behavioral design helps us to do exactly that, right? It helps us to, we all want to go to the gym, but we don't go to the gym. How can it be made easier for us to go to the gym? Place a gym very close by, or put it into your schedule, mark your calendar with it. The same thing exists for smallholder farmers as well. How can we make it easier for them to do the things that they really want to do, which is engage with markets, reduce their informational asymmetries, take on new technologies so that they can become far more productive. With artificial intelligence, some of the things that we are already learning are that first, farmers want to adopt technologies, but they prefer conversational apps rather than those where they are extremely passive and just looking at their phones. So conversational technology or applications on their phone are far better for them. Second, a lot of the new AI-driven technologies and apps are far better targeted towards those that are younger farmers rather than older farmers. The third is that we like to have champions, right? And this is one of the key things that is also true for behavioral technologies, that you can have leader farmers or leads or within groups that can really take forward peers along on adoption of new technologies. And that becomes really important as we want to think about AI-driven technologies and digital technologies. Fourth, we need to create norms and defaults within this space. And one of the key things that we can do is collaborate with each other so that the lowest common denominator in terms of the projects or the investments that we put out are really driven by these technologies. And last but not least, I think essentially showing that yes, there is an ease associated with the adoption of these apps, where farmers are able to work easily, not just with the apps themselves, but with the developers of apps, so that we are co-developing, so that we are co-innovating, and we are really working within the context within which our stakeholders, that is the farmers, that are people living in rural areas, are truly trying to deal with these challenges becomes really important. And I think that's exactly the space that all of you are here in, and I'm really proud to be associated with it, as well as the teams that are developing these technologies in a way that is co-developed, co-initiated, and co-implemented. With that, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Joe. We can get on with the session, hopefully an exciting presentation and discussion. May I please invite our panelists and speakers to the stage. Stephanie, Director General and Chief Information Officer of Asian Development Bank, who will be moderating. With her, we have the panel Gladys Morales. She's the Head of Innovation for IFAD. Yasmin Siddiqui, she is the Director Agriculture and Food Natural Resources in Asian Development Bank. We are also excited to have Anirudh joining us from Bhumitra, Esther joining us from Farmer Lifeline Technologies, and I may also inform that we have two companies joining from online. So Michael is joining from Agropreneur, and then Kayan Yusuf is joining representing WIMO online. And we also have around 70, 80 people online attending the session in addition to those here. Thank you so much. Thank you. So maybe we just start with the presentation from the winning companies that are here. We will go in alphabetic order. So we start with the Agripreneur, and Michael will share his presentation online. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Michael Ianro, and I'm the founder and CEO of Appreneur. We are an AI-powered finance, climate-smart training, market access platform for farm cooperatives in Africa. Just like in Europe, Asia, and America, farmers in Africa, they are the backbone of food production. Despite being essential food producers, these farmers, they live in poverty, they live in relentless misery due to three big problems. Number one, farmers in Africa don't have access to capital in order to scale their farm. Number two, they don't have access to knowledge and smart farming techniques for them to be able to navigate challenges such as climate change. Number three, they do not have access to market in order for them to be able to sell their produce and earn a good margin. This is where Appreneur comes in. Appreneur platform is divided into five sub-solutions. Number one, we have the App School, which is a platform that enables farmers to gain knowledge in smart farming techniques and to know for whom to produce and how to produce. Number two, we have the Ag Credit, a platform that enables the farmers to get an on-demand loan in order for them to be able to buy inputs and for them to be able to scale their farm. Number three, we have the Ag Supply platform, a platform that enables farmers to connect directly with manufacturers of input and get supply directly to their farms. Number four, we have the Ag IQ, our AI-powered chatbot that enables farmers to get on-demand answers for the problems and challenges they may have on their farms. Number five, we have the Ag Trade platform that enables farmers to be able to sell their produce and earn a good margin. This platform has created a win-win scenario for all partners on the platform. So far, we have processed over 1,200 loans worth over $2.5 million till date. We have moved over 40K tons of farm produce from cooperatives to industrial buyers. We have trained over 20,000 farmers till date in smart farming techniques. And we are scaling really fast in Nigeria, and we want to do more across Africa. With me on this journey are people with background in agriculture, business, and technology development. And together, we are taking Appreneur to the next level. We are participating in the MD4 challenge in order for us to be able to scale this platform, for us to be able to leverage more AI in our solution to scale, not just in Africa, but globally. I welcome you today to join us on this journey as we scale our solution across Africa and other developing economies. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Michael. So next, we are happy to have Anirudh with us, representing Bhumitra. Anirudh, over to you.
Can I have the slides? Can you go to the first slide, please? Okay. Okay, sorry about that. Thank you everybody for this opportunity. We are Bhumitra. Bhumitra in Sanskrit translates to friend of the earth. That's what we're trying to do, is remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, store it safely in the soils. You know, and climate change is here, and smallholder farmers who are having a much lower carbon footprint than any of us in this room are facing the brunt of this. At the same time, they spend about $368 billion of their own money adapting to climate change. Yeah? And what's the problem today, right? Especially by providing this financing, especially carbon markets to these smallholder farmers, is of course farm sizes are extremely small. This is quote unquote a virtual commodity, so the transparency and the monitoring, reporting, verification has always been a challenge. And even if you want to go out there and do unlimited soil tests, it's prohibitively expensive, $80 a test in some of the countries we work in. And sometimes there's not enough capacity, even if you have as I said, a blank checkbook. That's what we will try to do is we want to remove carbon dioxide, store it in the ground, but of course by keeping a very farmer first or farmer centric approach towards this. I'm going to move past the next slide because things have changed as for yesterday. But yeah, what we've painted a slightly bad picture, but what is possible if we are providing smallholder farmers with the correct ecosystem? So meet Rose from one of our farmers in Kenya. Previously, she was harvesting just like 8.9 kg bags, but provided the correct ecosystem through partners like the World Food Program, she's increased her yields while removing 1.2 tons of carbon dioxide per acre on her farm. So, if we provide the farmers the right tools and the right incentives, everything is possible. How we do that is by working with partners like the World Food Program, who enable farmers to adopt improved land management practices, which lead to an increase in soil carbon. We are then able to measure these soil carbon increases, leveraging our proprietary AI and remote sensing capabilities, and turning them into a third-party certified commodity, which is the carbon credit, which is traded with fortune entities who have a net zero target. The vast majority, in fact, the super majority of all of this value is transferred directly back to the community. That's extremely important. To talk a little bit about the technology, we use many satellites across the electromagnetic spectrum and build location-specific models which are calibrated using ground truth data. And when a farmer comes into our ecosystem, they not only get access to carbon finance, but what's the amount of nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, soil moisture, all of which is funded by the carbon finance which is generated. The farmer does not pay for any of this, by the way. Through our projects, through our technology, we've been able to scale quite a bit, and I am very happy to announce that we've just a couple of days back signed an MOU with the government of Mongolia for the creation of Article 6.2 credits. Right? So this is a new way of looking at carbon finance where we're going to have compliance markets and not just the voluntary markets come in. I think that's going to be the key enabler to delivering large tracts of finance to create large-scale adaptation across the global south and the vulnerable communities that are there. Till date, we've had a good amount of traction, signing about $100 million worth of futures for our premium price credits. And as I said, this demand is only increasing. I call upon folks in the room today to work with us in their existing projects and the newer projects so that we can layer on top of them and provide this fund. Because the demand is there, it seems kind of bad not to deliver this finance to the farmers when there are buyers who are willing to pay for this. A little bit about us. Over the past 3 years, we've received so many different accolades ranging from the World Economic Forum, the World Food Program, and of course the M4D, which is why we're here. Thank you so much for that. And also, of course, we're the winner of the Earthshot Prize, considered to be one of the highest honors in the environmental sector, and of course by the Royal Foundation. Finally, what we're looking for is expanding markets, especially in the compliance side, because as I've said before, that is going to be the key to do large transactions, as Joe mentioned earlier, and of course, creating adaptation at scale. With this, I yield my time. Thank you so much again for this opportunity. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Anirudh. Next, we have Esther Kimani, CEO of Farmer Lifeline Technologies. Esther.
Thank you very much. How is everyone doing? Hello. Yeah, it's good to see people smile as I wait for the slides to be up. So I'm Esther Kimani. I'm the founder and CEO of Farmer Lifeline Technologies. A little bit about myself. I've grown up in a farming community, and I have seen firsthand the effects of crop pests and diseases. And what this meant is that when a third of our crops were destroyed, meeting our basic needs was really hard. That meant even something like school fees couldn't be gotten. A dress for Christmas, which we valued so much, sometimes we wouldn't get it. And this not only affected my farming community, but is also affecting millions of farmers, not only in Kenya, but also in Africa, who lose almost half of their produce in every farming season due to delayed identification of crop pests and diseases. Smallholder farmers, in a bid to find a solution, they excessively use synthetic fertilizers and farm chemicals, which emit up to 9.8 billion tons of carbon annually, and that's about 24% of the total greenhouse emitted. And it is projected that by 2036, they'll emit up to 38% of the emissions. That's actually more than burning of the fossil fuel for electricity. Now imagine this. They are losing their farm yield. They are emitting 9.8 billion tons of carbon, yet they are the most marginalized and excluded in climate conversations. And the reason this problem has existed for so long is because smallholder farmers in rural areas have had to rely on either their intuition, that is, scouting their farms to see with the naked eye the pests and diseases, or call one of the outnumbered agricultural extension officers to visit their farms, take samples to labs if they have private farms, and come back with a diagnosis at a cost of $60 per visit. Or technologies that have come up, like the drones that charge $100 per hour. These are smallholder farmer. That's maybe what they're making in a farming season. And so, having studied a degree in computer science and meeting an able team, we developed and patented the first ever solar-powered crop pest and disease detection device that leverages artificial intelligence and machine learning for the timely detection of pests and diseases, able to detect over 12,000 species of pests and diseases with an accuracy of 97.5% within the first 5 seconds of infestation. So this is an actual farm in Kenya and the land fragmentation of smallholder farmers in Kenya. And this is one of the devices that we have mounted on our farms. You'll see it marked in yellow. And our cameras currently are able to scan 600 meters. So those 3 farmers that you can see there, they are served by that one device. And each one of them pays us a leasing fee of $3 per month. So that one device is earning us $9 per month. We do not charge them any installation fee. And so this farmer at $3, this is the information that they can get. Apologies for those who are at the back who may not be able to see the small text, but we try to even translate our information for the smallholder farmers for accessibility. The one on my far left is in Swahili, and we also do it in the local languages. I couldn't have one here, but I'll go through the English one, and you're able to see the crop pest or disease that has been detected, and we've been able to connect with an Earth observation that is able to detect pests and diseases that are high risk that follow certain climatic conditions. Then we recommend the fertilizer that they should apply and the pesticide, and it doesn't have to be chemical. It can actually be what they are used to, like intercropping spinach with the spring onions. Then we have the seeds that are drought resilient and pest resilient for them to plant, and not only that, give them a weather forecast for early warnings in weather. We currently have a presence in Kenya with over 5,000 smallholder farmers using our innovation. We've successfully done our pilot in 5 African countries, and our key partners are farmer groups, women groups, and cooperative groups. And we are looking also for more partnerships for the data that we're able to generate. On the competitor analysis, on the basis of affordability for the smallholder farmer, recommending localized solutions, 24-hour surveillance of their farms and timely detection of pests and diseases, live data analytics and prediction of pests and diseases, Farmer Lifeline beats our competitors who are drone companies, Agri Experience Limited, that's an agronomist, private practitioners, and mobile applications such as Plantex. We are able to give farmers a cashback guarantee if they do not experience a 45% reduction in crop losses and 30% increase in their yields based on our feasibility study that we conducted with a Canadian NGO in Kenya called FarmLink. All this would not have been made possible without a robust team of 8, I could only have 6 on the slide, with a combined experience of more than 30 years alongside an able advisory board. It is because of such impact that we recently received a UN FAO Achievement Scroll last year in Italy for our current and future impact in agriculture for leveraging technology to impact smallholder farmers. So we also received the M4D Innovation Award, and they're supporting us with 50,000 USD. And the ground is still open for anyone who would like to support us and even collaborate with Farmer Lifeline as we scale our operations. With their support so far, we know we are going to launch and scale our version 3 device. I mentioned the 600-meter radius. We are looking at a 1,500-meter radius camera. That will serve more farmers and reduce our operational costs, finish our African patent, and scale our impact to 20,000 smallholder farmers by end of the year. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Esther. Let us now invite Kayan Youssef, who is representing WIMO. Kayan, are you online? Over to you.
In person, I really tried my best, but wasn't meant to be. Thank you so much for inviting me here. Truly inspired to hear from Michael, Anirudh, and Esther, such great presentations. Before we start, Johnny, can I please have like an audience view? I want to see the audience for a second because I want to do a pulse check before we dive into this. So over the past year, let's say, how many people in the audience have used generative AI to help them with their work or study or whatever it might be? Why don't you raise your hands? Even if I can't see you, I'm sure Stephanie will let me know how many people raise their hands. So I'm sure it's a fair enough amount of people, as I do. How many of you have used generative AI using your smartphone or the internet? Excellent, excellent. Final question, and this is really where, because I can't see the audience yet, Stephanie, you have to let me know how many people raised their hand in response to this. How many of you have used generative AI using a non-smartphone and without the internet? No smartphone, no internet, but generative AI. I see one hand, which I'm very, very happy to say. At least I can see one.
I think we had 3 hands.
3, excellent. Please do get in touch with me. I would love to know how. So let's put a pin in that, and we'll come back to this in a minute. I'll start off by talking about the problem that we're trying to solve. Now, it's unfortunate that we take information for granted at times, but even as we speak, almost 3 billion people globally are disconnected. That's around 1/3 of the population of the world. People like this could include, for example, Osi, a farmer living in Zambia, far from the urban centers, and her life involves around caring for her family. But in the moment of need, when she has to make an important decision, she can't just pull that information from the radio or the internet. And I know this sounds a bit odd, but at times that really bothers me, and that really bothers us in terms of trying to figure out how we can get information to them. Now, Viamo, what we do is that we connect people like OC using very basic mobile phones to information through IVR calls, automated voice recordings. We do this globally with a number of partners, and this can be related to a vast variety of information: fertilizer, cyclone alerts, financial services, HIV, sexual reproductive health. And just to give you an idea of numbers, in 2023, we connected with around more than 20 million people globally, delivering them a vast messages in the millions across a number of countries. The countries that you see highlighted are just the countries where we have MNO or platform agreements with MNOs in those countries, where people can access the information calling a short code number. but we operate in more than 40 countries globally. Now, the problem that we are trying to solve, and coming down to Moonshots for Development, is that while we already have an IVR-based access, which is curated information, which is recorded and pre-recorded, and people can access it, but we have been experimenting since last year with generative AI. And we launched a pilot in Zambia where people can actually call a number using a basic mobile phone without the internet, ask an open-ended question, and get a response in voice within 19 to 20 seconds. And this is all offline. They do not need to go online. What we are doing in Zambia is what is called Ask Viamo, anything which is linked to a generative AI engine such as ChatGPT. Whereas in a number of countries, what we are doing is theme-specific Ask Viamo, Ask an Expert, which is where we train an empty generative AI shell on subject-specific expertise, such as agriculture, such as health, such as financial services. We already have other pilots in a number of countries. We are scaling this, piloting this with a number of partners. Now, what we get is we already have those platform agreements and active users on those platforms who can access this information. The initial pilot in Zambia has been very, very successful. More, satisfaction is more than 80% people are satisfied with the responses. It's voice-enabled accessibility, which is excellent. So it overcomes a number of the barriers related to literacy, a number of comprehensive, very, very various sorts of information that they access. And it is, wherever we do this, it is mostly in local languages to make sure people can access it. I won't get into this. This is the technology behind it. A number of you probably already know about this. Speech to text, then natural language understanding, pre-trained generative AI, LLM model, and text to speech, which is how we respond back to the audience. I'll pause there and I'll stop there because I think we'll move on. And I would love to hear from you during the Q&A session if you have any questions about this. Thank you so much. Happy to be a part of the panel today.
Thank you so much. And with that, I hand over to Stephanie for the panel discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you, speakers. I think, it is humbling to learn about the various challenges that you are facing, and it is enlightening at the same time because through the technology and AI, you actually arrive in certain solution to actually combat some of these challenges and the bigger issues on the climate change. So thank you very much, Michael, Anirudh, and Esther, and Kaiyan. So now join me also, I have Gladys as well as Yasmin. So maybe I start with the question is for both of you, Yasmin and Gladys. So what are some possibility or current initiative for ADB and IFA in promoting digitalization and AI with your member countries? So maybe Yasmin, and then we have Gladys.
Okay, I think this is working. Thank you, Stephanie. And before we start, maybe I'd like to just take one moment to congratulate all of our presenters, to Michael, Anirudh, Esther, and Kaiyan. I'm so impressed by all of you. The type of information you hold, the initiatives you've taken is truly impressive for many of us. And the way you've presented your solutions, for me, it also reflects that you have a very strong understanding of the ground realities and the language that the smallholder farmer would understand. So we've learned a lot from you, and as Stephanie says, I'm truly humbled by that knowledge that you bring here. And just to follow in, just briefly, Stephanie, if I can have a minute, maybe I'm following in Kaiyan's footsteps. I just want to know how many people here are from government representation, if you could put your hand up. Half? Less than half? So maybe that's where I'll start from, that for ADB, given that a lot of the work that we do is directly through the sovereign partner, which is the government, of course, to reach our clients and beneficiaries, which are the farmers and other users, it's very important for us to have government's engagement to also understand where that knowledge is and where those solutions are and where the cutting-edge technologies are. we're fortunate that we have some breakthroughs, and I'm very pleased that our project officers who work on the ground in Tajikistan with the Tajik government and Tajik livestock farmers have made an initiative, and I think it was Joe who said using co-developing approaches, and I think you've touched upon that too, Esther. The team started with a very small grant, only $200,000, and very much initiated from their side an engagement with livestock farmers in Tajikistan to really understand what were the challenges they were facing with the movement of their herds and with pasture management. And through working on a systems-based approach, they were able to develop an app for the farmers, just through a very small grant, to understand on animal health, livestock herd movement, and pasture management. With that very small initiative and also the very strong engagement from the Ministry of Agriculture in Tajikistan, the team has now been able to scale up, and we're looking forward next year to a $15 million grant project, which will scale this up and bring in the AI context as well, so that we can really look at land use management as well as herd management, also looking at decarbonization efforts. But it started with what I believe is the most critical part, which is understanding the end user, but also engaging the government. And I would really urge our government partners who may be present in the room to please also access that knowledge and information through any of our partners as well, to bring that technology to the farmers. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie, for the introduction and for organizing this and bringing us all together here at the Food Security Forum. I would like to discuss two main initiatives where we are collaborating, but more than the initiatives, I would like to underline the approach that we are using for these two initiatives, because it is the approach that we are co-designing and co-implementing that is delivering results for both ADB and for IFAD. So I'm going to start with Moonshots for Development. This is a partnership that was born in 2020, and from the beginning, it was clear to us that we were going to design a partnership model that had to be innovative and that had to be forward-looking. We were co-designing all the initiatives. So traditionally, when the agencies get together, it's very common that we come from traditional partnerships models and to come to these co-financing agreements. And we said from the beginning, let's start with learning. So at the basis of the partnership, we have innovation management, testing, learning, and adapting. The other thing that we are implementing in our innovation model is a three-pillar approach. So in addition to the financing that we are providing these teams with, they are also receiving technical assistance. They receive coaching on lean innovation methodologies so that they can improve their product development, but also coaching in behavioral design. One of the things that Esther, you didn't have time to share with the audience before, but one of the discussions that we have had with Esther and other of the companies that we're working with, also with Viamo and with Agpreneur, is how important it is to take into consideration the context. How important it is to take into consideration the special needs and demands of our project participants. So behavioral design addresses just that, ensures that in the design of these initiatives, we are taking into consideration the context, the cultural barriers, the opportunities, and working with the project participants so that we can also address the challenges, not only understanding the challenges, but also addressing them. Very, very importantly is in the approach that we use, I'm not talking about beneficiaries, if you have heard. I'm talking about project participants, because we see them as partners in our design. And that's a very different mindset to traditional mindsets, because by considering the farmers partners in our projects, we are co-designing with them. Esther was sharing earlier this morning also how through behavioral design, they have one paramount principle is that you need to make sure that the knowledge of farmers is also used in these technologies, in the recommendations that are being given. So the recommendations that are transmitted to them either through VIAMO or through Agpreneur or through Farmer Lifeline Technologies, they implement also traditional knowledge, ensuring that it's not only about the fertilizers and pesticides, but it's also about transmitting from generation to generation the knowledge that is there that is not using chemicals, this is more agriculturally sustainable. So that's component number 2. Then the component number 3 is through this partnership, and this is really the powerful thing about the partnership with the Asian Development Bank, with the Inter-American Development Bank, CJR, the World Bank, and WFP. What makes this partnership successful is that we're working from the moment of identification, offering this technical assistance, building connections for these companies, bringing them to fora like the Food Security Forum. Then next month they will be with us at the European Innovation Summit, so that those connections can also help us to integrate into our program of loans and grants and to move forward into scaling up. It is only through that integration into the program of loans of grants within our organizations that we can really ensure that there is a scaling up and into the financing pipeline. So that's the really powerful, I would say the most important element of the partnership that we have. So that's Moonshots for Development. Then within Moonshots for Development, we also develop digital assets. And one of the digital assets that we are developing is AgroWeb3. This is a partnership between IFAD and the Inter-American Development Bank based on a very successful the flagship blockchain initiative of the Inter-American Development Bank that is called LagChain. And what we aim to achieve with AgroWeb3 is we are building a highway for digital wallets. This is going to be a global standard. IFAD and IDB are going to be the first IFIs to actually go to the International Standard Organization and create a single interoperable protocol for digital wallets, a universal standard. And that will ensure scalability, but it will also ensure that the learnings that we have from the successful application of LagChain in Latin America can be replicated in other geographies from the technology point of view. Then we have other challenges that are behavioral, that have to do with context, and we're learning from our partnership also how to address those challenges.
Thank you, Gladys. Thank you, Yasmin. Actually, I think through these two conversations, I arrive 4C. So context, connection, because all of this actually allow us to have the context and collection. And the third C is actually really about co-creation. How do we actually put the farmer at the center of it, and then we co-create together? And then the last one, I think this one is very important for all of us going forward, is that how do we actually do co-financing and project together? And I think with that, we should be able to actually tackle more of small founders, small farmers' challenges. So maybe this one, I will look it back the virtual panelists. So the first question I would like to pose it to Michael is that, what are the key challenges in implementing AI-powered solution for the rural development? How can we address them effectively?
Yeah, thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Basically, when you look at some of the challenges, number one, it has to do with digital literacy in the rural areas, especially when you have to educate farmers, because farmers don't know more about this technology. Most of the time, you have to teach them how to use it. Then we talk about connectivity issues, especially around internet. Then we also talk about data privacy concerns. So these are issues that affect farmers in the rural areas. So addressing these are to do with, enhancing digital infrastructure, providing tailored education on technology use, which is what we do through Art School. We ensure that, we're able to teach these families how to handle technology, how to make use of them, and how to leverage on them to be able to scale what they're producing. So basically, these are just the things that needed to be done, and we need to look for a way to leverage on human-centered design approach, basically, which is the key. Human-centered design approach is the key if we want to scale our innovation, especially using AI in the rural areas. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. So the next question is for Esther and Kayan. How do we ensure inclusivity and accessibility of the AI technology for the smallholder farmer and the rural communities, particularly in the remote area?
Okay, thank you for that question. I think when we look at inclusivity, we need to ensure that our solutions are tailor-made for the needs and challenges of those that we are looking at in the rural communities. And that means, like some of us who are so close with the problem, we've grown up with the problem, we've understood it from that perspective, but also for developers of these solutions and entrepreneurs, first learning firsthand the need, not really what the business is all about, but what the need that their solution is coming in to solve. And when you look at the inclusivity part of it, I tried to break it down maybe into three aspects. One is affordability and accessibility. And one is making the technologies affordable for these local communities. In as much as we are in business, like for us from a Lifeline, we consider ourselves more of social enterprise. Because yes, we are making profit, but at the end of the day, at the heart of it is a smallholder farmer, and you have to also look at their income. And when we charge the $3 per month, is that first we have looked at the willingness to pay, and we've looked at the financial capability of a smallholder farmer in the rural areas. Then two, we have to look at the aspect of capacity building, if it's about inclusivity. And this would mean breaking down even the technologies that we are helping them to solve the problems into smaller nuggets that they can, consume. And that would mean taking them through a journey of the technical part, not really going into the code, the algorithm, but really telling them this is what this is meant to do for you. This is the value, and that's why you're paying for this. And not only that, but integrating also, as we said earlier, the information that they already knew, the lessons that they already have from generation to generation, and see how this is marrying with what you're bringing into that community. Then last but not least is the sustainability and scalability of these innovations. When we talk about the sustainability of it, we'll have to ensure that the communities embrace it. And they've understood it in such a way that they are propagating the information themselves. Even without us being there, they can still talk about AI and how it's helping us with pest and disease detection and pass it to someone else and to another person. And that's how we're going to also ensure the sustainability, even when we are not there. So right on the ground, we have local champions of the technology themselves. And that's what we do also at Farmer Lifeline. We identify trainer of trainers, and they help us with the dissemination of information and also answering questions post-training to also help them continue with the technology. So I would look at it from those three perspectives.
Thank you, Esther. How about Kayan?
Thank you. Excellent answer, Esther. So I'll share something very briefly with you. In the past 6 months, it's happened twice that our team that works on generative AI has been at events which were talking about AI and technology, both in urban centers, and because of the number of attendees or for any other reason, internet services were very, very weak. And these were in places where internet is generally available. And you really realize what inclusivity means when you get excluded. So a number of the demonstrations, a number of the product demos could not happen because internet was down, the apps weren't working. in terms of our solution, it is built around inclusivity. And I think that's why it's so important, because aspects such as a voice, aspects such as non-internet reliability, and then local languages, I think these are aspects where you really have to think about what your target audience, the farmers in this case, have, what could be the challenges that they're trying to receive, because the best solution, if reliant on factors which are not either not available at all or not always available, limit their ability to access that information and be able to access that technology. So I think for every solution that we ever talk about, keeping in mind the local context, just like Esther also said, is so important, because unless you do that, you can have an excellent solution, but if you can't reach those audiences and make it important for them, there's no way that it's going to actually scale, even if it does have early pilot validation.
Thank you. Yeah, actually, I think I got the message is that you really have to put the farmer at the center of it. When you put the farmer at the center of it, you really understand the context, the local context. What are they subject to in terms of whether it is a connectivity issue or whether it's a no connectivity challenges. And then at the same time also to do with the local languages supports and all this. Then next question is really about how can we make it affordable and accessible so that they can actually take advantage of that. And I really like, Esther, you talk about capability and capacity building, because I'm at the core of it is helping digital transformation across ADB. And one of the things, it is really about digital capability development or building. So I wanted to just further double down on this conversation is with Esther and Anirudh on capacity building is actually essential for the AI technology adoption. How can we then empower the key stakeholder to leverage AI effectively for sustainable development? Anirudh?
Thank you so much, Stephanie, for that question. Yes, capacity building is the key, because let's face it, like maybe the farmer or even the community doesn't care about AI or global warming or food. These are not problems which they have created, let's be very, right? What from our perspective is key is incentives. What is the incentive for the person on the ground to go out there and spread your message, right? Secondly, this is an approach that I'm really proud of, is that we shouldn't tell the communities what to do. They know what to do much better than us most of the times. Rather, what we should do is enable them to be the best version of themselves, leveraging the incentives that are possible. And thirdly, I feel would be the technology aspect. And when you trace the journey of the farmer, right? So in our case, like we need to get the KML maps, or like we need to get the farm boundaries. Now you think about it, it's 45 degrees in India or in Philippines. Now, if somebody has to get these boundaries out, then they have to go to 20 farms. This is hard work, right? So what we did was, okay, like how can we create an auto geofencing algorithm where you click on the center of the field and it creates a boundary for you. Is it 100% accurate? Not yet. But it saves them hours of their time, and then it creates a willingness to go out there and onboard these farmers, right? So leveraging technology, the traditional knowledge, as Gladys was saying, and then of course leveraging incentives to top all of it, and equitable incentives, right? It shouldn't be that, let's say we don't want all businesses to kind of mimic the food business, where food will change hand 42 times, especially in India, before it lands on my plate. And of course, the farmer is making the least amount of money in that transaction. It has to be flipped in all of this. The farmer should get the most incentive, then the community personnel who's enabling this transaction to happen. And then, of course, third would be, let's say, the enabler of all of these aspects. So that would be our take on it. Over to you, Esther.
Thank you so much for that. When I think about capacity building, I also think about the digital divide that has been mentioned earlier, and taking really key notice of what we're saying, that there's a digital divide that exists. So even when we are going to the rural communities, how how are we stepping into these communities with the AI information? There are some you have to break down to this is a smartphone, because they use SMS, like what we use at Farmer Lifeline. We use GSM technology. It doesn't need internet. It's just SMS based. And so when we are training them, actually that's the first question: do we need internet? Do I need a smartphone? And we have to break it down to, we've simplified that technology to allow you to use it on SMS that you're used to. And maybe even now moving on to something like USSD that they are so much used to and we're looking forward to. So when we're looking at capacity building, we have to also know how to break down jargons in AI. I can't go tell them artificial intelligence, but I could tell them I have a camera that works just like your eye. It's able to detect a pest or disease on the farm, but faster than you can, and it can recommend what you should apply on your farm. And then the questions now begin from there. So how does it tell this is my farm? And I will tell you, it is able to take the geolocation. Now I'll break down the word geolocation for them. It's able to take, this is your coordinate. From this point to that point is your farm, and it will not confuse. And that I've already said the device is smart without having to tell them it's a smart device. So also learning how we are breaking down jargons when we are going to these rural communities. Does it mean also going with someone to translate what we are saying, and preparing beforehand so that when we are communicating, it's effective and we win whoever we want to win, in this case being a rural smallholder farmer. Then two, I think about the inequality gap, the gender inequality gap that exists. In the rural communities, I'll talk about the global south. 9.3% of women get access to tertiary learning, institutions of learning, and get to learn from the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. That's STEM. And when you look at that percentage, it also tells you have to look at a gender lens when we are taking capacity building programs to rural communities and who we are meant to find so much there, the women, young girls in these rural communities. However, we cannot leave out the men also. At Farmer Lifeline, something we realized is that in as much as we are marketing to these women, the ones who are going to pay are not the women, it's the men in these families. So we cannot also leave them out in these capacity building initiatives of training. Then last but not least is to take the commitment to finance startups like these ones who are showcased here, Viamo, Agpreneur, Bumitra, Farmer Lifeline, and take it as a personal commitment. We may have panel discussions like this, but until it gets to commitments that how many AI or tech solutions am I supporting that are reaching the rural communities, and I can say I'm supporting 4. And so far they've reached 20,000 smallholder farmers. Then it will move us from general talk to commitments that are actually promoting change. So my call to action today would be, what can we do together? IFAD and M4D, they're partnering, and Farmer Lifeline is moving from 5,000 to 20,000. But imagine if we'd all do this together, and we found these techpreneurs, agpreneurs, and we supported them. How much more can we do together? Thank you.
Very insightful. So actually, one of the key questions a lot of time we are being asked is, what are the ethical considerations that we actually need to look at when we deploying in the agriculture? So Cayenne and Michael, perhaps maybe you can help to also answer the question is, how can we ensure that these technologies prioritize the well-being of farmer and also respect their rights?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I think it's very, very important, especially in terms of any new innovation, whenever you're rolling it out to communities, keeping not only understanding the ethical considerations, but then ensuring that your product development, your outreach plan includes those implications is very, very important. For example, in the case of generative AI, the number one thing is consent, understanding and seeking consent from participants in being a part of receiving information from you. And I think the second thing is also making sure that they understand. Now, over the year or a couple of years that we've been using generative AI, all of us, we have understood the limitations and the expectations that we have from ChatGPT and generative AI services like that. But a new user might not, especially those that might not have the literacy. So it's very important that they understand through disclaimers, through voice-related advisory, which says that the information you are receiving is to help you make informed decision and not making the decision for you. And almost all international organizations, USAID, FCDO, ADB, IFAD, I'm sure the UN agencies, very recently the UNICEF as well, they have guidelines on ethical considerations and safeguarding policies, which I think all of us in the development sector, as we roll out these solutions, we have to really think about them and make sure that we have a do no harm practices in there and mitigation to make sure that we are, the people who will be using this technology understand what it's for and understand its limitations.
Thank you, Ken. So I think one thing we also need to do is to focus more on leveraging user-centered design approach when we're building solutions for these rural communities. This way we can basically prioritize, transparency, and we also need to see it from a point of continuous education. Education is important for farmers to continuously understand what they're using, continuously interact with them, and to continuously, empower them to make informed decisions. And I also think there is a need for us to, have guidelines, that can help, in building these technologies and rolling it out into the rural community, especially making the communities to understand, not just in English language, but in the local context or local languages that they can understand so that they know what they're using. This way, I believe that, we can basically enhance, the rollouts of AI. Thank you.
Thank you, Kayan and Michael. So actually this last question before I open up for the panel is for everyone to actually kind of chime in. For collaborations, between multilateral development banks, international financial institutions, and also the private sector are very important to scale up our AI solutions. So what are some of the successful model that you have seen that is working, and how we can actually encourage more of this collaboration in that space? So, we can start with Gladys.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. That's a very good question. So based on this testing, learning, and adapting approach that we are implementing through the Moonshots for Development Alliance, but also at IFAD, the key component that makes it or breaks it is making sure that we are really understanding the problem. So that's the number one, because sometimes, and a lot of us, and some of you will have been pitched by different teams and companies about the latest AI or the latest technology that is going to solve all of our problems. But it is when we did the selection criteria for the teams that ended up winning the innovation challenge, the key factor was in the interview process and in the applications that they submitted was, do they really understand the problem? Are they really familiar with the context? I am very pleased to have them all here today sharing with you the fact that the technologies that they are developing, the products that they're developing, are addressing literacy skills, are addressing language barriers, are addressing connectivity issues. So the reason why they're addressing that is because they really understand the problem. When Kayan was talking before about, it's not only about offering conversational apps which is one of the results of our research together with Croatia, that one of the things that you have to do with when ensuring technology adoption in marginalized areas is that those apps are conversational. It's not only about that. You need to provide the services also in local languages, and they need to be voice messages is a very effective way of doing so, because that way you're also addressing literacy skills. Very successful collaborations. What we're learning from previous innovation challenges and previous collaborations within innovation that not necessarily need to go through innovation challenges is collaboration with governments. Making sure that we are really addressing the demands of governments, the needs that they have, and that we are co-designing with them. So that's why it's so important that this, in addition to understanding the problem, that we are integrating this, which is the next phase of our collaboration within Moonshots for Development, making sure that our teams are meeting with also our country teams, and that there is integration into our country programs. The most successful collaborations that we have are collaborations where we have identified solutions that understand really well the problem and then get integrated into IFAD's country programs. A quick example is Land Monitor, which was implemented here in the Philippines under the 2022 and 2023 IFAD Innovation Challenge. Within 18 months, they had developed a solution that then became part of the country strategy program, addressing land tenure rights and working with women and for women, so that we were collecting data and evidence for land tenure rights.
Thanks, Gladys. So maybe from our side, I think within the ADB context, we have quite a vast arena covering sectors all the way from energy to transport to major infrastructure in water resources and agriculture. And I was just thinking while you were speaking, Gladys, about that focused approach. So I had 3 areas where I think I see some of those challenges. Firstly is around the knowledge, and it's having that understanding first internally. And at the moment, what I would say is we're moving from champions within the organization into moving towards the mainstreaming digital solutions and the application of AI into a much more mainstreamed approach in the way we approach our initiatives in various countries. In my opinion, that requires then project officers who are the key interface with the client to understand, number 1, the languages, number 2, what is out there as potential to be able to quote examples, and number 3, to be able to understand how to build that partnership across with entities such as we're seeing the startups who are here today, so making that link. So that's how I see it on the internal side, and I'm pleased to see we have at least dotted in the room a few of our champions, some in the front row, some in the back, who are making those individual efforts. But what we really need is to move ahead with a collective effort where we're mainstreaming, just as we've done with other initiatives. Number 2, externally, as the client that we interface with in terms of government and farmers. So starting with the government, I've had recent conversations where very enthusiastically I've said to a government counterpart in the Ministry of Agriculture in a country to say, oh, by the way, you know, University of Western Australia came to ADB and they showed us their rover, which can go up and down a farmer's field and using AI can detect a pest. And could we try it with you? Can we bring it to you? No need. We're doing it ourselves. We don't need anybody else's technology. So there's this barrier that exists where many countries, and I've faced it in not just one, in a couple, where they're saying, we have it here. We don't need anybody else to come in. So there is this apprehension. But my sense is that might be more to do with the lack of exposure to what else is out there. So helping our clients in the terms of the government also understand what's out there is something very important. Secondly, in terms of the most important client, which is our beneficiary, who is the recipient of the benefits from our financing. I think all of our colleagues have covered it to ensure that we are looking at really what are their needs and understanding it. But importantly, and I think, Esther, you touched upon it, in many of the countries that we're working on, it's women who are the farmers, and it's often forgotten that women are the farmers, by and large, in many countries where we see major out-migration of males to other countries. So having that sensitivity and understanding of who is your client and what do they need is really important. I think it's also important from our side that we take the effort to also facilitate startups with some of the areas that we can support in, for example, baseline surveys and collecting perception surveys and data on what are the needs of those clients. I was just drawing a little diagram, and so how I saw it was, here we have all of you smart brains, the startups, who really have the understanding and have applied it and tested it and have knowledge on it. And here we sit in the middle, Gladys and I, with the dollars and the bank that has the dollars and has the access to the client, and sits on the other side, the users. And it's about how do we link our hands together to make this one seamless stream from your side to their side with us as the intermediary and the facilitator. And I'm really keen, and I invite you that please join me at some point on a mission to one of our countries, because I would love for you to share the work that you're doing with some of the governments that we work with, because I think it's time to open everyone's eyes to what's out there. Thank you.
Yeah, very well said, Yasmin. Thank you so much for that. As a startup, I'd rather put the onus on us that how do we collaborate with Yasmin and Gladys and get their dollars to us, right?
Willing to give it.
Yeah. But I think maybe going a level deeper, as you said, that, you know, we have to look at, in our case, the end beneficiary is the farmer. So I'd say that when we have to collaborate, we have to put the farmer or the rancher or the pastoralist at the front and center and see, okay, if we do this, what are the risks associated with that? And as a startup, I'd say that you mentioned Tajikistan, right? Now, what we'd ideally like to do is come to Tajikistan, do a survey with the first, do an analysis to see how much carbon has been sequestered through the first set of the $200,000 grant, and then say that, okay, now with that, we generated, I don't know, let's say like $1 million worth of carbon. Now, because we have now first de-risked the farmer or the pastoralist in that case altogether. And it's a much easier sell to go to the government and say that, hey, we're not going to charge you or the farmer anything for this, but rather coming on top of this and expanding your program, because it's been proven time and time again that direct benefit transfers are a much better way of doing developmental work, but it has to be results-based. You can't give out free money. That never really works out. It's been shown time and time again. And yeah, second, just regarding the women, this has happened to us in India, where we had to, this is where I'll call upon like Gladys and yourself, it's about advocacy. That, you know, that land tenure rights. As a startup, we cannot go to the government and say that, oh, you know, change the land tenure rights. I'm not able to transfer money into these women's bank accounts because a third-party standard who's based in Washington, D.C. says that, oh, like, I have to transfer the money into the person who has the land ownership, right? So we had to give about 200,000 acres, cumulatively about $6 million. We have to leave that off the table because of, I'd say, a bureaucratic or a thing which is written somewhere like many, many years ago. So these are the kinds of collaborative efforts that we'd want, that we want to come in, provide finance, but we need your support to do the advocacy and spread the message that, okay, this is something that it's very viable. Yeah.
Wow. Very good, very good. So I would like to open the floor to see whether there is a question for the panel. Oh, we got a lot of hand raised. Can we help to actually go to the podium for the microphone? Yeah, the stand, yeah.
Hi, I'm Megal from Action on Poverty in Australia. We're an NGO in Australia operating for 55 years. It's really amazing to see all you social entrepreneurs up here in the limelight I'm sure it's come at a lot of personal and financial risk. So the question I have is, as a agency from Australia, we're looking to start a venture philanthropy fund to kind of make this ecosystem a little bit easier for you to access capital. So you go from bootstrapping to your angel investment is a little bit easier, because the markets you operate in don't have deep profit pools unless you can get to scale, and that's a very long and treacherous road. So the question I have is, maybe if you can shed some light on your journey on how hard was it to go from bootstrapping to your first investment in the company, and what advice would you have as we put together this venture philanthropy fund to help more of your counterparts access this funding, so that we can see more of you in the limelight in the years to come?
Thank you so much. When we see such opportunities as entrepreneurs, we smile. Yeah, it's not easy moving from bootstrapping all the way up. And I would start from the aspect of policy. That may be beyond now you, but also to the governments that are here. Sometimes it's really hard for entrepreneurs to even register businesses. I don't know about other continents, but I was looking at a landscape in Africa that in one country it can take them 24 hours, like Rwanda. And in some countries it will take them 3 months to register a business, and we're on the same competitive landscape. So governments who are here, or policymakers who can make such decisions, please listen to that voice of the young entrepreneurs who want to register their businesses, and it's already hard. And not only that, expensive. In some countries like Tunisia, they have startup ecosystems where the young entrepreneur is shielded from costs of even registering the business. It's free for them in that ecosystem. But for me, I had to pay from my own pocket. I had to save up or get another job just to fund my vision on this other side. And for other countries, it's just extremely expensive, even beyond what Kenya is. So also learning what kind of landscape that entrepreneur is coming from. Then looking at the capacity building in intellectual property. Most of us startups, for me, I was lucky to get incubation, and maybe that's somewhere you can also start, like incubating a startup and giving them the training that they need in intellectual property. Because the more they grow, the visibility they get, of course, there are those who are seeing these innovations. They can see, oh, you mean we can do that? But we have a better financial muscle than that entrepreneur. But you can shield them by giving them the knowledge on intellectual property so that they can protect it right from the word go. So that even as they're building it, even as they're bootstrapping and you're coming in with the financing for them, they've already protected that part of them. Then also is to learn. One of the things I appreciate about such programs is that we are trained on the investor readiness. When you identify a startup and you're ready to invest in them, but you find them not investor ready, don't kick them out. I've been kicked out of some of the programs, and it's not really easy, because the reason you applied for that program is to get maybe even that support on how can I get them investor ready. Tell me how. What did you find missing in this startup that you needed to invest in me, and ensure that by the time you're exiting, I have those documents. I have already maybe kickstarted the process. If it started as a sole proprietorship, like for us, we started as a sole proprietorship, and some investors were like, no, sole proprietorship, we don't do that. But guiding us on the importance of now registering your business as a private entity, and you can now bring in shareholders. I think we would really appreciate that as a startup. Then entrepreneurship journey can be very lonely. And when you're doing it alone, I would tell people there are times I would leave the office at 2 a.m. and they would only see you as a speaker somewhere. Oh, you got this program. And they're like, oh, you just woke up one day and you're a speaker in a conference. But really, there's a lot of time and effort, and it's a bit draining and lonely as an entrepreneur. So when you get them, not only the support from the business angle, but also as a person, what other support can you give an entrepreneur? Yeah.
Thank you. This is Salam from Bangladesh. I have a query to Esther. What about the accuracy of the AI-based pest and disease detection and prediction? And another point, which points need to be considered to maximize the benefit of AI for smallholder farming?
Could you come up again with your first question? Accuracy.
What about the accuracy of AI in case of pest and disease detection and prediction?
Oh, that's a good question. I'll take it to something called machine learning, and again, I'll break it down because not all of us are tech. In machine learning, you take something and you train it on something again and again and again. So if it's looking at spinach, it looks at healthy spinach again and again and again and again. Then it looks at infested spinach again and again and again and again. So the moment it sees an image of a healthy spinach, it will differentiate between a healthy and an infested crop. At Farmer Lifeline, we've done our machine learning algorithms. We started with them internally and had to bring in also expertise to help us with that. Our accuracy right now is at 97.5%. And the reason we've been able to get there is because Farmer Lifeline is laser focused on pest and disease. And of course, these other parts of support are coming in as we grow. You know, we've gotten questions like, why don't you diversify? It's because when you're talking about AI and accuracy, that's already a research and development that needs time, effort, and finance. So we've gotten to the 97.5% accuracy. Then on your next question, you mentioned?
Which points needs to be considered to maximize the benefit for AI for smallholder farmers?
For smallholder farmers. I think it comes again to the capacity building part of it and going in to simplify what it is to them. Actually, you realize that some of them have actually been using it. Not all of them are entirely in the dark, but they don't know that they've actually been using AI on their mobile phones. Some of them have actually been using chatbots, those who have smartphones. But to now tell them, now you can use a chatbot like the one agripreneurs are using, and now use it for good now in this aspect of agriculture. And not only this, but integrating it maybe with extension services, also in governments, because one of the areas that we found even as Farmer Lifeline that we came in to bridging the gap is that one agricultural extension officer is ratioed to 1,100 smallholder farmers. And so if we could also capacity build the government extension officers, in as much as the technology is also there, they will also see, oh, even government is in on this, even so-and-so is in on this. So I think that would also help them see the good in artificial intelligence. And not only that, I would also pose this to those who are using the artificial intelligence, is to be transparent with data. I hope entrepreneurs, we're hearing this. We need to be transparent with the kind of data we are collecting from them and who is in charge of that data, and let them know that they can take away their data when they need it. If they feel it's no longer safe, show them that they can know this is wrong. Yeah, just to be transparent and open on the use of their data.
Thank you.
Thanks, Stephanie. Augustine Athwan, consultant and journalist. I just wanted to press all six of you if you could give us three things that are on your highest priority. To summarize my question, we know where we are now, and I sense we know where we want to go. So what are the top three things you want to see happen to get us there? Sorry, I'm still a journalist at heart. So please don't say money, because from all the interviews I've done with bankers and with sovereign wealth funds, money is there. It's all about getting the money to come into your project. But if you still list money as your top three, go ahead. But I want to put you on the spot. So far, no one has mentioned it, but the last 10 months have broken all temperature records. It hasn't come up in this forum in the first 2 days, so I'm highlighting it. And the scientific community and the pharma companies that brought the vaccine for COVID have already issued papers that the next one is coming. They're calling it Disease X. So against the backdrop of the 10 months of record-breaking heat temperatures and Disease X, as the four startups and the 2 financial representatives, what do you think needs to happen so that food safety, food security, and food nutrition will be doable against the backdrop of these 2 paramount challenges? Thank you.
Well, let me start with that last part of the question. And that's a very, very relevant one because you were mentioning the nexus between climate, nutrition, but also financing. And even though you're saying that financing is the typical question, the typical answer that you get, action follows money. So if we don't have that financing, then action doesn't really happen. But the action doesn't happen unless you're also doing advocacy. If we're not educating the people so that they make better elections when they're deciding on their leaders, then it becomes quite difficult to also influence policy making. Why is financing important as well, and why those efforts for advocacy, and this forum is one of those efforts. It's not only about knowledge sharing, but there is an important component of advocacy. Our Associate Vice President at IFAD started the forum talking about how financing for climate and for smallholders in particular is going down, and how smallholder farmers are the ones that are most affected by climate. They have also been the ones that have contributed the least to climate change, and yet financing to address their needs is going down, it's not going up, even though advocacy efforts are being effective in terms of bringing consciousness to the needs of involving smallholder farmers in the conversation, but also in the design of our projects and our investments and interventions, that financing is effectively going down. So we need to change that. And regarding the first figure that you started your question with, there are changes that are happening that are already irreversible. And that's the reason why IFAD's priority is also on climate adaptation investments, because we are very much aware that those investments are extremely necessary where climate mitigation is no longer possible. So that's a priority. The other priority for us is partnerships. Partnerships with other IFIs, partnerships with other UN organizations, and partnerships with the private sector. Addressing the need and addressing also the understanding that developing for the UN, for the IFIs in general, from scratch would take us 15, 20 years. If we partner with the private sector, we can get all of that knowledge. However, partnering with the private sector also needs to, from our perspective, has to deal with creating the right incentives so that we are de-risking those investments for the private sector. And also understanding that profit is not a sinful word, as we were discussing before. It's social innovation can be profitable. And we need to work with the private sector with a change, a switch in the mindset that profitability in social innovation is possible, and that it can create further incentives for the private sector to make investments in those target groups that we want to address, but also in those marginalized areas where they're not willing to go because it's too risky or it's not profitable. That's where our value added is. And the last thing that I wanted to say is we also need to stop competing with each other. These partnerships with the IFIs, they cannot be just a partnership on paper. The reason why we created Moonshots for Development is because it's a white label partnership. Even though our logos are there, when you came to this session, the session is called Moonshots for Development, and that's the alliance that we created. And many of the interventions that we have, even the website is white label. It's not an ADB website or an IFAD website. It's a Moonshots for Development website. And the vision behind that is that even when we're doing resource mobilization efforts, we're not raising money for the investments of ADB or the investments of IFAD. We're raising funds so that we can address the challenges, and we can work as a whole as the partnership to make those investments. So it's a different, it's a completely different switch in the mindset and how we do partnerships.
Thank you. So you asked for 3 points, and maybe maybe we'd all, I'll just give the assumptions that we'd all made, at least personally I'd made. My world is a climate world. My big thick specs are the climate specs. I see everything and every decision that we make from here onwards has to have climate included on it. So there are no two ways. And that's the assumption I walk in every day, that the world is a climate impacted world. My other assumption was that the partners who sit here are our equal partners. But I think what's important as well, and maybe the missing link that we have here, is that we need to have 2 more chairs on the platform, which are our governments and our end users or the beneficiaries who we need to add on this podium, because without them, our chain is not complete. So that's my other point. The third one is really about, it goes back to what I'd said earlier. I think the knowledge and capacity internally and externally is something that we really need to focus on. And I know, Stephanie, you're working really hard with your team, and we have our champions here, Saad and others, and internal generation on understanding, because not everyone is a science fiction fan in here. And I think that understanding of what is out there in the world and bending your imagination is not everyone's cup of tea. And I think it needs to be everyone's cup of tea that they drink in the morning. Because I truly believe that it is only through private sector solutions, such as these that we're listening to in AI, that we can accelerate the solutions to work with communities on building resilience to climate change impacts. Alone, a financier simply cannot do it. And I'll critique myself here, that I'm guessing that the average age of the banks are probably double what your average ages are of the entrepreneurs and those who are really on the cutting edge of technologies. So for many of us, we need to fast forward our thinking and understanding on what's out there. So that's our internal challenge. The money is available. It's about the language we speak and connecting that language with the end user. And also, of course, the capacity building of our governments. And I would love to hear from some of them who are here in the room. But the point you make, Esther, just the simple point, and I'm glad someone from Bangladesh government asked the question, but them having an understanding that you don't need to be injecting the conventional project approaches of let's put millions of dollars into capacity building or extension workers and providing them with vehicles and motorbikes, which is the usual construction we see of a project. But why not capacity building in AI so that they can use those approaches and those technologies by engaging private sector to give greater outreach without the costs involved? So maybe those were my 3 points. Thank you.
And I also have Kayan raised a hand. He wants to speak.
Thank you. So I'll try and answer your question, 3 points. And point that I will be speaking about voice-based generative AI and what needs to be done besides the money, of course. Number 1 is partnerships for content. We work with governments in a number of cases and other organizations. So the more, as Esther was trying to explain, the more iterations, the more you try, more the risk accuracy, the less the chances for any sort of safeguarding or ethical issues with bad advice given. The second thing is partnerships with the private sector. So we have partnerships with MNOs all over the world, but still there are issues of interoperability. So whenever there is a digital public good, it is important that the private sector is on board so that it is available to as many people as possible, not saying, oh, sorry, you're off net, so you can't call this number and get the advice that you need. So I think that is also a very big challenge. The third is partnerships for natural language understanding, or NLU. Now, we've been testing pilots in Swahili and Malagasy, Urdu, Hindi in a number of countries, but language capabilities and language understanding capabilities is still a stumbling block, which is why we can't roll this out in more countries. So I think these are the 3 sorts of partnerships that we are always looking for to be able to pilot this in more countries. And then we can always turn to Gladys and others for the money. So
Thanks, Kayan. Actually, we are reaching to the end of our panel session, and I know that there's still a few more questions that from the audience. I believe our panelists would be able to actually mingle with the people who actually still have questions to kind of like interact and to have a Q&A session, because I know that it's actually at the 12:30. I've been flagged a few times that I need to end the session already. So I just want to conclude, and I think it is a very empowering to hear all of you sharing your solutions, not only sharing your solution, but your ambitions and your aspirations, how you want to tackle the challenges that we are facing. And what I have learned is A, B, C, D, E, F. So let me just elaborate a little bit. A is really accessible to affordable technologies. Second is really about B, how can we make it as a bite-sized learning so that even the most difficult languages of artificial intelligence can be translated into the farmer. 3, just now I already mentioned, we have, we have to understand the context, we have to make the connections, and then we have to co-create. 4, of course, for development. E is really empowering. F is farmer. So that ends our panel session, A, B, C, D, E, F. Thank you. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Kayan, for joining us. And thank you all the people staying through the whole panel session, even though your lunch is started long time ago. Thank you so much.